On a corner in a neighborhood most drivers speed through without looking, there's a tan sedan parked at the curb almost every day. The hood is usually up. A man in oil-stained coveralls is usually leaning over the engine, and the kids on that block, the ones who ride bikes past him after school, have a name for him. They call him Einstein. He's in his late 50s. He's black. He's homeless. He sleeps in the back seat of that same sedan most nights, with the windows cracked and a folded blanket as a pillow. And according to the people who live on his block, the people who have watched him for the better part of 3 years, his car runs on about 90% less gasoline than it should. That's the claim. That's what Einstein says and what his neighbors say they have seen with their own eyes. A man with no home, no garage, no engineering degree, and no funding has done something that car companies and governments have spent billions trying to figure out. So, who is he? How did he do it? And why is he still sleeping in that car? Let's start with the block. The street where Einstein parks is in a working-class neighborhood on the edge of a mid-sized American city. It's the kind of street where people sit on their porches in the summer and know each other by first name. The houses are small, the yards are smaller, and a lot of the cars on the street have seen better decades. There's a corner store on one end and a vacant lot on the other, and somewhere in between is the spot Einstein has claimed as his unofficial workshop. When he first showed up, nobody paid him much attention, just another man living out of his vehicle. The neighborhood had seen plenty of those. The recession had been hard. The opioid crisis had been harder. People had learned not to ask too many questions when somebody new started parking on the street because the answers were usually painful and there usually was not much anyone could do about them. But after a few weeks, people started noticing he was always working on the engine, not fixing it, modifying it. He had tools spread out on a piece of cardboard. He had what looked like copper tubing coiled in places it should not be. He had a thermos of coffee from a corner store and a pencil tucked behind his ear. He kept a notebook on the dashboard, and the pages were filled with diagrams and numbers in tight handwriting. The kids noticed first. Kids always notice the people adults pretend not to see. They started calling him Einstein because of his hair, which he kept long and gray and a little wild, and because of the way he muttered to himself while he worked, as if he was solving an equation only he could see. The name was a joke at first, then it was not. Because Einstein, it turned out, knew more about engines than anybody on that block. His real name, according to the few neighbors who have earned his trust enough to ask, is Marcus. He grew up in Detroit. His father worked at one of the auto plants, and his uncle ran a small repair shop in the neighborhood, and Marcus spent most of his childhood with his head under the hood of one car or another. He was the kind of kid who took apart toasters to see how they worked, then put them back together better than they were before. He was the kind of kid who read library books about thermodynamics for fun. He worked as an auto mechanic for almost 30 years. He was good at it. He was the kind of mechanic other mechanics would call when they could not figure out a problem, the kind of guy who could listen to an engine for 10 seconds and tell you what was wrong. He had a wife once. He had a small house. He had a life that looked from the outside like it was working. Then the recession hit. The shop he worked at closed. He bounced from gig to gig, from city to city, trying to land somewhere stable. His wife passed away from an illness that took longer to diagnose than it should have. He lost the house not long after. He kept working, kept patching things together, but the gaps between jobs got longer and the savings got thinner. A medical issue of his own ate what was left, and he ended up in his car somewhere around his 55th birthday. He says he started tinkering because he did not know what else to do. He had time. He had a car. He had his hands. He had 30 years of mechanical knowledge sitting in his head with nowhere to go. So he started thinking about a problem that had bothered him for decades. Why are gasoline engines so wasteful? It is a question most people never ask, but mechanics ask it all the time. A typical internal combustion engine throws away around 70% of the energy it produces. It comes out as heat, as friction, as unburned fuel in the exhaust. Engineers have known this for 100 years. Car companies have made small improvements decade by decade, but the basic inefficiency has never gone away because the system is designed around assumptions nobody has bothered to question. Marcus questioned them. Walk past his car when the hood is open and you will see something that does not look like any engine you have encountered. There is the original engine block, still bolted in place, but wrapped around it is a network of modifications that he has built piece by piece over the past 3 years. Salvaged copper tubing winds from the exhaust manifold back toward the fuel line. A heat exchanger he pulled out of an old refrigerator. A used vacuum pump from a hardware store dumpster. A small reservoir bolted to the firewall that he calls his vapor chamber. A series of small valves and regulators that he machined himself using a hand drill and a vice clamp. He did not buy any of it new. He could not afford to. Every component on that engine came from a junkyard, a curb on bulk trash day, or a back alley behind an auto parts store. He estimates he has spent under $200 total on the modifications, and most of that went to gaskets and sealant, and a few specialty fittings he could not scavenge. What does it do? According to Marcus, the system preheats and atomizes the gasoline before it reaches the combustion chamber, recycles the heat from the exhaust to keep the process going, and recaptures fuel vapor that would normally be lost to the atmosphere. He says the result is a car that gets between 200 to 250 miles per gallon. A normal sedan from the early 2000s gets around 25 miles per gallon. That is where the 90% number comes from. And the people on his block, the ones who have watched him drive that car to gas stations and back over the past 2 years, say the receipts back him up. He fills the tank maybe once a month, sometimes less. He drives short trips, sure, but he drives them daily, and the fuel just does not seem to disappear the way it should. One neighbor, a woman who works at the corner store, says she has watched him buy $4 of gas at a time and stretch it for weeks. Now, here is where you might be tempted to roll your eyes. You have heard claims like this before. The 200 mile per gallon carburetor, the water-powered engine, the Tesla suppression theory. The internet is full of garbage like this, and most of it falls apart the second a real engineer takes a look. So a real engineer took a look. There is a retired aerospace engineer who lives 3 doors down from where Marcus parks. The neighborhood asks that his name not be shared, but the man spent 40 years working on jet propulsion systems for a major defense contractor. He is the kind of person who knows the difference between a real innovation and a scam. He has the patents to prove it. He has a workshop in his garage that looks like a small NASA facility. About a year ago, after watching Marcus work on the car day after day, he walked over and asked if he could see what was going on under the hood. He spent 2 hours looking. He came back the next day. He came back every weekend for a month. He started bringing his own tools. He started bringing coffee. He and Marcus would stand over that engine for hours, the engineer asking technical questions, and Marcus answering them in language that surprised both of them. What the engineer told the rest of the block, in his careful and quiet way, was this: the principles Marcus is using are not impossible. Preheating fuel for better atomization is real science. Recycling exhaust heat to maintain that preheating is real engineering. Capturing fuel vapor is something that car companies already do, just less aggressively. Marcus has not invented free energy. He has not broken the laws of thermodynamics. What he has done, possibly, is push existing principles further than the auto industry has bothered to push them, using parts that nobody would normally combine in a way nobody has thought to combine them. The retired engineer would not commit to the 90% number. He said he would need a controlled test on a dynamometer to verify it, but he said something else that the neighborhood has not forgotten. He said that if Marcus's numbers are even half right, this man has done something that ought to be in a laboratory at MIT. Instead, he is sleeping in the back seat. To understand why that is, you have to understand a piece of American history that does not get talked about much. In the 1970s, during the oil crisis, a young man in El Paso, Texas, named Tom Ogle, claimed he had built a carburetor that let his 1970 Ford Galaxy get over 100 miles per gallon. He demonstrated it publicly. Local newspapers covered it. He had patents pending. He was offered millions of dollars by what he described as oil industry representatives to sell his design and disappear. He refused. A few years later, at the age of 26, Tom Ogle was found dead under circumstances his family disputed for the rest of their lives. There were others. A man named Charles Pogue in the 1930s claimed his vapor carburetor could get over 200 miles per gallon. A man named John Weston Fisher, a handful of backyard tinkerers across the 20th century, claimed to have cracked something the auto industry insisted could not be cracked. None of their work made it into mass production. Some of them died young. Some of them gave up. Some of them simply faded into obscurity, their notebooks lost, their prototypes scrapped, their names reduced to footnotes in conspiracy forums. Marcus knows all of these stories. He brings them up sometimes when he trusts the person he is talking to. He does not claim conspiracy. He does not blame the oil industry. He just says, in his quiet way, that men who look like him, working on cars in front of houses they do not own, do not usually get listened to. And that is the heart of it, is it not? A homeless black man in his late 50s, parked on a street in a forgotten neighborhood, has built something that might matter. The barriers between him and the rest of the world are not technical. They are social. They are economic. They are the stack of forms required to file even a provisional patent, which costs around $300 before lawyer fees. They are the fact that no university or research lab is going to take a meeting with a man whose return address is a sedan. They are the way a person becomes invisible the moment they lose a roof over their head. They are the assumption baked into how this country runs that real ideas come from real institutions, and that anyone working outside of those institutions probably is not worth listening to. Marcus has tried, by the way. He has walked into local television stations and been turned away at the front desk. He has emailed engineering departments at nearby universities from public library computers, only to get no response or a polite form letter. He has talked to a few journalists who said they would follow up and never did. He has stood in the lobbies of patent offices with a folder of hand-drawn diagrams and been told to come back when he had a lawyer. The block has watched him try, and the block has watched him get ignored. And the block has decided that whatever happens next, he will not be ignored on their street. Which brings us to what they have built around him. The neighbors take turns bringing him meals. A woman 2 houses down runs a hair salon out of her kitchen, and she sends him a hot plate every Sunday. A retired postal worker across the street lets Marcus use his bathroom and his shower a few times a week, and washes his coveralls in the same load as his own laundry. A teenager began filming Marcus's work on his phone, with permission, and uploading short clips to a small social media account. The retired engineer, of course, has become something of a translator, explaining what Marcus is doing to anyone who will listen. The block has effectively built a workshop around the car. Someone donated a tarp for shade in the summer. Someone else ran an extension cord from their garage so Marcus could use power tools when he needed to. The kids who first nicknamed him Einstein are now teenagers, and a few of them help him hold parts in place when he is working on something that needs a third hand. One of them, a girl who is a senior in high school, has started talking about studying mechanical engineering in college. She says she wants to be the kind of engineer who looks at people like Marcus and actually listens. Nobody on that block is rich. Most of them are one paycheck from being in the same situation Marcus is in. But they have decided, collectively and without ever holding a meeting, that this man matters, that what he is doing matters, that if the rest of the world cannot see it, they can. A few months ago, that teenager with the phone uploaded a clip that started getting traction, not viral, just enough. A few thousand views, then a few thousand more. People started leaving comments. Some were skeptical, some were rude. Some said it was obviously fake. But some were engineers, real engineers, asking real questions about flow rates and combustion temperatures and whether the modifications would pass an emissions test. And one of them was a professor at a state university about 90 minutes away who specializes in combustion efficiency. The professor drove out to the block. He spent an entire Saturday with Marcus, looking at the car, asking questions, taking notes in a leather notebook he kept in his jacket pocket. He did not promise anything. He is a careful man, and he made it clear he was not going to put his reputation on the line for something he had not tested. He had seen too many crackpots over the years. He had seen too many promising ideas fall apart under measurement. But he agreed to do something nobody else had agreed to do. He agreed to put Marcus's car on a dynamometer at the university lab, a real test. Real measurements, real data, no assumptions, no favors, just the numbers, whatever they turn out to be. That test is happening soon. The block is raising money to help with the trip because Marcus's car needs to be transported and fueled and registered properly for the test. And $300 feels like $3,000 when you live in a sedan. A small online crowdfunding page has raised a few $1,000s, mostly from people in nearby zip codes who saw the clips. The teenager who films him is putting together a short documentary. The retired engineer is helping Marcus prepare a written explanation of what he built in the kind of technical language that academic journals expect. Nobody on that block knows what the test will show. The numbers might be exactly what Marcus says. They might be lower. They might be much lower. The retired engineer has tried to manage expectations. He says even a 30 or 40% improvement would be remarkable. He says even if the 90% number turns out to be exaggerated, the underlying ideas might still be worth studying. He says the worst possible outcome is that the test reveals Marcus has been wrong. And even then, the man has spent 3 years thinking harder about combustion efficiency than most people will think about anything in their entire lives. But here is the thing, the neighborhood already knows. Regardless of what the dynamometer says, there is a man on their block who has spent 3 years of his life with no money, no degree, no recognition, no home, working on a problem he cares about. He has done it with his hands. He has done it with junkyard parts. He has done it while sleeping in the back seat of the car he has been modifying. He has done it because he believes the world wastes too much fuel and he thinks he might know how to waste less. He did not have to do any of it. He could have given up years ago. Most people in his situation would have. Most would have spent that time just trying to survive. But Marcus, the man the neighborhood kids call Einstein, decided that being homeless did not mean being useless. He decided that the only thing he had left was his mind, and he was going to use it. How many people like him are out there? How many Marcuses are sleeping in cars right now, working on problems nobody is asking them to solve, with no path to ever being heard? How many ideas have died on street corners because nobody bothered to look? How many quiet geniuses are walking past us every day in clothes we do not want to look at, in neighborhoods we do not want to drive through, with notebooks in their pockets that nobody will ever read. How many cures, how many inventions, how many breakthroughs are sitting in shopping carts and shelters and the back seats of broken down cars, waiting for somebody to ask the right question? The block on Marcus's street thinks about that. They think about it a lot. Whatever happens with the dynamometer test, whatever the numbers turn out to be, the people on that block are going to keep bringing him meals. They're going to keep letting him use their bathrooms. They're going to keep sitting on their porches and watching him work. They're going to keep calling him Einstein, because at this point the name is not a joke and it is not an exaggeration. It is just his name now. And maybe, if the numbers come back the way Marcus says they will, the rest of the world will finally start calling him that too. If you want to follow what happens next with the test, the small documentary the neighborhood is putting together will be released later this year. We will be watching. Subscribe so you do not miss the update.